Yeah, thank you all for coming out. Malvern Bookstore, thank you for having us out here on short notice. It's really cool. Thank you, that was great. I had a set of haikus that I had written when I was living in Kern Place, down by the University in El Paso. And I had been given a computer from an animator, that was a gift because I had done some work for him, and he paid me $200. I'll get you. I said, no, it's all good, man. You do great work. And he gave me this little old G3 Mac, and I was working off of that. And I had just left Univision. I had been there for about 4 years, and I reached a point where I had to get out, just to do something else in my life, within the same genre. So I saved up, and they were trying to move me up this little world of theirs, and they offered me an opportunity. I'm like, no, I'm just going to take the money you're giving me. I'm just going to hide away, for 2-3 months, and we'll see what happens. And so I did, and all I wanted to do was fantasize to myself that I was a writer. I'm going to buy myself time to convince myself that I'm going to write, and I did. And I wrote a few pieces. I wrote a screenplay that I still want to produce this year. But I was most proud of my haikus that I worked hard at writing, and then it was an old Mac sort of thing, went away, boom, gone. All my work was gone, including my haikus, and I worked at like 200 of them. And it got to a point where it was like a vice. I go get drunk, and I'll go back to the haiku, all right, see where this takes me, and I go off by myself and just get lost. So that was beautiful, man, and I mean that. That was great. And Julia, you guys have, Danny and Julia have been, part of the whole thing of being a poet is accountability, and I've lacked plenty of accountability throughout my life, and certain aspects of my life and work, right? Relationships and business, and I got a whole slew of demons and skeletons, but the one thing that I nailed down the most when I figured out, like, okay, well, what am I about? How do I recognize myself? Is writing, is poetry, is getting lost in it. It's almost utterly therapeutic and cathartic and developmental, and it becomes a technology. It can become a technology. That's the only reason I'm able to do anything, is because at the end of the day, I'm a poet, and it's a salvation. And what they've done here in Spankyville is create a refuge for people that are like myself, and like Ernesto and Mark and Oliver and Pete, whenever you want to go, people, and Ann, and I'm sure you all have been there as well, and Chris. It's like you go there, and it's like this really cool enclave of like non-guilt, just coming from El Paso and Juarez. I went to DFW first, and to read at some place called the Wild Detectives at Oak Cliff downtown, really hipster kind of thing. It was cool, I'm open to all that. And then we went to Fort Worth Library. Well, right when I got off, I felt like 15 pounds lighter, not because I'm, light, it's just because I got rid of all the Juarez and El Paso guilt. I don't know what I'm guilty for. This is Catholic, Chicano, guilt. I'm like, wow, cool, all right, I didn't do that after all. All right, I'll go from there. So their place is a refuge for that, and it's been, sort of a point of coming to dispel and get the plan. And so Ernesto and Mark and another friend of ours from Dallas are doing they're doing a mural project, and they're going to unveil it. And when is that going to be?
March 21st.
March 21st. And they've been doing it as a homage to, for lack of a better word, I guess, a better word, by all means, but to Raul Salinas, who was a friend of mine. And I lived here for 2 years, 97, 99, and probably the best time too to live here, from what I hear. I'm not saying anything. I just know that it was a cool time. And so I was lucky enough to, me and Cesar, to have befriended him, as a first an admirant, and then secondly as a friend, and just trying to figure out yourself at the age of 20 years old. All right, how do I get to where I got to be inside to get there? And so along that path, you get people to help you out, to walk you by the hand. Right? Get here, get over there. So he was one of those that just sort of took me from one place, me and Cesar, to another place, in terms of internal confidence, if anything. So this is, I'm going to start off the piece with this, and this is a homage to Raul Salinas. any chance I could get some water right now? You can, please. It was damn shame. And I believe in Chicanismo and Mexicanismo, Neo-Ricanism, because of the backbone principle of family, where the celebration or the outcry for the loss of and the shouts are heard. Thanks. And these lyrics here, all they do is talk of the unfolding of the elders who fought with social fervor. Now even their children look to age in the best of ways. And from this past century up till now, the threading of our own historical tapestry, from violent upheavals to do away with social injustice to the development of an ethos that served as a skeleton in the formation of this generation's outcry. And to become afraid for whatever reason and to not come through will be a true goddamn tragedy. So that's to Raul. And to guys like yourselves and ours, and it's really calling yourself out. You know, it's like, all right, you know, I happen to roll with some very key people in the industry within writing, and you know, consummate name dropping. You know, is what some of my closest ones tell me. You know, my friends and loved ones, like, God damn, you're such a name dropper. You know, and I'm like, no, I'm not dropping names. You know, to drop names, I'm just telling them my story. You know. And you happen to be close to me to hear it. I ain't trying to show off or well, maybe sometimes, you know, but you get over that. You get over that, and it's more of like, all right, cool. What does that mean, though? You know, what does that mean to you? What is that? Is there anything really injected and learned? You know, if I ain't gonna go down the academic route, am I gonna go down? That's gonna ensure that I continue to develop as a spirit, as a human, as a thinker, as I dare say, an artist and a writer. So how do I get to that within all that's broken inside myself? You know, how do I get to that? And you get those teachers and you get those people. So although there's been mistakes made, and there will continue to be mistakes made, there's been more than anything just this utter resilience of like, all right, stepping up to what people like Jimmy Santiago Bata have done, and what like people like Raul have done, and people like Miguel Algarín, you know, from the New York Poets Cafe, who took me in to Lower East Side Manhattan. If you guys don't know who he is, he's the one that pretty much fostered the talent of Mikey Pinheiro, Miguel Pinheiro, who won a Tony Award for Short Eyes, a play he wrote in Manhattan about going to prison and pedophilia. You know, is what it was about. People don't want to say that, but that's what made him very famous. He wrote for Michael Mann on Miami Vice, and then they made a movie about him. The first guy to teach Latino, Neo-Rican, to teach at I think Rutgers and Princeton, Shakespeare, PhD, you know, and he bought a building in downtown Lower East Side Manhattan with, in the 70s when Manhattan was an utterly horrible place to be in. It was like quietest. And so they bought a building for like $7,000, and it's there. He showed me the title, and Bob Dylan and him. Bob Dylan was when he was hanging with him and Jack Kerouac and these guys, and he was like, that building there, just buy it. Right now, heroin junkies over there. There's a bunch of homicide down there. This is worth nothing. You know, buy it for $7,000, and they did. And then now it's so, you know, gentrified. You know, it's, you know, well, for good or bad. I'm not trying to make any commentary on urbanism. You know, I'm just giving the story of what's happening. You know, on that, and so now it's worth millions. You know, and there's a board of upper echelon Manhattanites that own the place, and I just want him to die. Essentially, he got kicked out of Lower East Side Manhattan to go to Brooklyn because he just wouldn't, you know, he just wouldn't change his ways of how to coexist within the space he grew up in. And so, you know, he's fostered people like Russell Simmons and most anybody you want to name. You know, he's worked with them, and so I got into their space through Jimmy Baca. So he's the one that put me in touch with him, and I go up there to pursue the publishing of my novel. And first thing that happens when I get there is partner attorney Carlton Spiller, an attorney from New Jersey, who won the American Book Award for his book of poetry, and he's just an upper echelon Manhattanite attorney, like very, very cool guy. Picks me up, and then he tells me, your manuscript is crap. We're not going to publish it. You know, that's a, hey, what's up, how you doing? And then the first sentence is that. I'm like, all right, cool. I said, you know, I'm getting pissed off, right, but I'm keeping it all inside. And then he takes me to, he tells me, well, we'll party you out, give me a good time, this and that. And we start talking later on that night. And I give them the story of what this book is. And they're like, if you're able to write that within the next couple of days, at least an initial manuscript, then we will take on the book as a New Eureka Press, which is a cafe. It was pressed for about 7 years. And so I did. So this is what I did. It's titled India. Underwater currents in dirt-churned water. The Rio Grande frolicking energy into the sides of Mother Earth, sculpting the landscape. North America's sacred vessel of opportunity, tragedy, the heartbeat history of America. And in 1977, the river raged, developing its myth, tempering its torrents long enough for those who dared to cross to discover the courage in the crossing or find death stamping its turbulent signature onto the spirit of the Rio Grande. And the river grabs the dirt, it digs through the terrain, realigns the creosote, it causes the nopal to turn and bake in the Chihuahua desert, bathe in the dry peach orange sunset covered in Paso and Juarez. And you see, that's where my burro is, what I've come to know as home, my hood, my place, the foundation of it all. And through my mom's womb, through her thoughts, her prayers, the desperation that Mexico is not and will not provide her with the opportunity to fulfill her desires, her dreams, and that is why she crossed in Rio Bravo. And in doing so, the dust rises. When the rain hits the cracked, dry land, my mom's hope, her roots spread like governing arms, reaching into the blue sky. Detached from her motherland. The stems are broken, but the roots still palpitating, pulsing as her heart defines itself as being the lonely mother-father, asking for a direct link to her mestizo, Jesús Dios Cristo. And the roots wither dry, with passing months and years morphing into a beautiful brown struggle, memory of uprooted soil still in hand, transported from one side of the river as it too slowly dries, carrying this young hope and family to this other side. The legacy begins. So earlier on, I go with a friend from El Paso. She takes me for dinner and a drink, right? And I hadn't seen her for a while. And so I'm working on my book. You know, Julia saw me working on my book at the Spanky Middle. I'm there. I'm trying to walk over this, what I'm doing right now. And much better than earlier on. That's what happens, you know? And I go and I'm taking notes on my book. You know? And I go with her and she's like, all right, you know, so is that my book? She said, is that my copy? And I'm all like, nah, no, it's not. You know, it's what I'm working off. I got notes on there. And she, oh, and she just got it, and she took it, and she took my book with all my notes. So I had to write down, rework it quiet. I'm like, oh, all right, take it. I got to go used to it. It's fine. So this here is Mountains. It's also kind of a homage to the fatalism of Chicanismo, of raza, you know, especially where we come from. And Pete knows all about that, you know. My brother, every time some argument goes wrong in the conversation, it's like, you know, fuck it, I don't, you know, I'll die if I have to die, you know, or somehow something goes there. I'm like, really? Like, it's just a conversation, man. It's not about, you know, it's not a Michael, what is it, a Ridley Scott movie where it's a drama, you know, or Indiana Jones. And but then I find myself doing the same thing too. You know, I'm like, oh, my ex-girlfriend, no, I'm gonna kill myself. I don't like. What is this? You know, what's the deal with that? And it's kind of about that. But in terms of birth, and that's where the irony comes in, where you can do something interesting, I hope. It goes mountains. The semen permeating in toward the ovaries like two hands entwining, forming one fist, spiritually surging, to mold and carve a mestizaje of young souls, redefined within the brown, subtle dark hues. Layers upon layers, leading to the face of the mountain that will become the home to our dead bodies. This is to my father, who was killed when I was 3 years old. You know, I have no memory of him whatsoever. He was killed by Apodaca and Juarez after playing in Kentucky, and some famous bar. And you know, so I have no memory of him whatsoever. I don't even have a clear image of him. You know, I saw him, he was tall, he was big, he had long hair, he was a guitar player and journalist. So, and that was it. And my mom's not one to disclose where we have mother-son time. All of a sudden it becomes a sitcom. We get into this elaborate dialogue of the history, and issues are resolved. You know, none of that. It's more like just, I ain't saying anything. You know, it's just what you get. You know, all right. So this is to my father, dead father. My father died. I never knew him, and he also never knew he had a son. Hilario, my father, my dad, dead now, forever alive. Now a spirit constant shows me where dreams become blood and bone, and they move with passion. And when I played the guitar, he tells me my passion was palpable. You can feel it. It felt like the fire of life with every string and lyric sung. Significance, my son. Live it, know it each day. Regardless of what has occurred, you are significant and fill the universe. And the thing of it is, it's in Spanish too, guys. You know, so not two. You know, it's not Spanish too. That was sort of the thing when I talk about the Spanish translation. I have a hard time saying it's a translation, because I imagine just on like a visceral imprint. The translation is sort of like, you know, bouncing off of something else. You know, it's a reaction to a certain response, and boom, it's not pure. You know, it's not pure in its own way. So it's more of two books. You know, it's a book in Spanish and a book in English.
Read it in Spanish.
I will. That's what I was. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, that was the thing. You know, I had luckily I had the right people to translate. The person who translated Jimmy Santiago Bacas Martinez Meditations in the South Valley, Dr. Cortázar, who's Mexican, Chihuahua, but he a PhD from I think Harvard. You know, but he won't talk a lick of English with you. You know, because he wants to talk in Spanish. You know, that's his prerogative, and he's in a place where he can, in El Paso, right? And so. He liked the poetry enough, segments of it enough to where, like, yeah, I'll do this. You know, I like this, you know. So this is, but it's also not like me reading his work, you know. It's I worked it with him. I sat with him in coffee shops at his place and drank coffee. He drank tequila and beer, and we went at it with material. Lengua sagrada, el voz aliento, oración, meditación, invita a las bendiciones, la providencia del amor. Ella me dice, la lengua, elixir mágico, forma el aliento en canción, llama al Creador a revelar el camino. So that sacred tongue. The voice breath, the prayer meditation, invites blessings, the providence of love. She tells me, the tongue, the magic elixir, forms breath into song, beckons the Creator to reveal the way. So this leads up to the way my mom crossed from Juarez. And some people think it's sort of a cliche. You know, I've had, you know, one or two people tell me, like, oh man, you know, why is you write a Chicano? In this book you got to talk about, you know, narcos and you know, cocaine and drugs and you know, and crossing the river and border patrol truck. You know, why is that? You know, the pantheon of images that we think of when we think of the Chicano and Latino experience, and why can't you just be like, you know, the Mexicans, look how they're doing it, you know, Iñárritu, you know, awesome, congrats, Cuarón, Arriaga, and these guys, why can't you guys do it like that? You know, I'm like, the obvious reason is, you know, a class thing, you know, they're from Mexico City, you know, and if you know them, my partner, he's a Chihuahuan, a Juarez and a Chihuahua cat that his father ran maquilas when he was younger. So in Juarez, he was really poor, really rich. He was really rich, so he happened to go to AFI and studied with in Switzerland with John Carpenter, and him and Horodowski, you know, are friends, and he played toys with Guillermo del Toro.